Okay, and we are live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third and final part of our three-part live stream event for aspiring authors. I'm Cheryl Muir, and I have with me Mary Shaws. Mary, how are you doing?
I'm so wonderful this morning and excited about the workshop. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm equally as excited. If you don't know Mary, Mary is the best-selling author of Conscious Communications, which was published by HayHouse. And as I said, I'm Cheryl Muir, and I'm a media strategist for authors. So between us, you have a PR gal, you have a best-selling author. So use us. If you have any questions at all about writing your book, whether it's the writing part or publishing, whether you're trying to attract the attention of a large publisher or you're writing a book proposal, or whether it's specific questions on building your platform, the ever elusive platform that you're always hearing is so important, but how do you actually do it? So let us know. Why don't you go right ahead and pop your comments down, put your questions down in the comments below. While you're doing that, I just want to remind you that the Aspiring Author Workshop is taking place this Sunday in just 2 days' time. Myself and Mary are co-hosting, and we're really going into all the subjects we're talking about today, but in much more detail. So how to write a book proposal, how to build your platform, how to gain publicity as a new author. We're going into all of that, and there's lots and lots of juicy bonuses, including a proposal that Mary actually won a 10K book deal with, and I'm giving you a $500 course for free, which is called Get Huffed, and it's all about attracting the attention and winning media coverage in online outlets like Forbes, Inc., Mind Body Green, Elephant Journal, The Huffington Post, just a few places myself and my clients have been published. And as you can probably see, the topic today is about attracting the attention of a large publisher. So we do have a few questions. We have had some questions come in yesterday, but Mary, what do you think is one of the most important things to attract the attention of a large nonfiction publisher?
Well, I think, as you said before, it's having a large platform. And I can actually tell you, when I've been sitting in the offices at my publisher and I'm talking to the marketing person and I asked her that question, she verbatim said the number one thing that they will look at, even over the quality of your writing, is the size of the platform. And the reason for that is because they want to ensure that the book is going to sell. I think a lot of people don't understand that 90% of books actually lose money. And so if the publisher is going to invest, in you as an author, they want to see that you have an audience to buy your book. So it's really not anything personal, and they're certainly not wanting to push you out of your comfort zone. But if you look at books that sell, it's because the people had an audience. Now, if you don't have an audience, there's of course an opportunity for your book to grow, especially through more grassroots efforts, and you'll certainly build your platform through that. So, one of the things that has come up a couple of times, or people ask me all the time, is like the difference between self-publishing and traditional publishing, and like, what are the drawbacks and the benefits? Like, what is the good and the bad of both? And I think if you self-publish, there is less pressure to have that platform. But on the other hand, through self-publishing and through the marketing of that particular, if that's your first book and you self-published it, you will organically grow your platform because of the book. So maybe it doesn't have to be this like mad dash all-in-one thing to build a platform, because you can build it organically over time. And as one of the things that they say at the HayHouse workshop is it takes 10 years to become an overnight sensation. So, I was thinking about this the other day, so in my 10 years, I'm probably on about year 6 or 7. So in 4 years, I can become an overnight sensation.
There you go.
And Cheryl, I want to get your thoughts on that, but then also, before we take the next question, I want to share something with the audience. So if you could remind me, I want to share something very personal with everyone.
I will do. So what I'm hearing there is one of the most important things really is to understand the business side of publishing, that when a publisher invests in you, whether it's a £5,000 book deal or a $10,000 book deal, whatever it is, they're investing that money and they need to see a return on their investment. So really they're looking at it from this business perspective of, let's look at the marketing, let's look at if this person can actually sell books and make this back. So they're looking at shifting, a good couple hundred copies, if not more, to even start to see that traction and start to see that you're selling books. And to give another stat, at the HayHouse workshop I attended in November, Reed Tracy said that we do expect you to sell 80% of your book. Now, that's obviously Reed from HayHouse. It may differ with other publishers, but I think that's a really good metric to give people an idea that you are expected to promote yourself, and ultimately your publisher is going to want to get a return on their investment ultimately.
Right. It's so true. And, we've got some viewers now. So if any of you out there want to write a book and it's your dream to get started on your book in 2018, can you say, I want to write a book in 2018 in the comments? I want to see how many people that are watching are actually aspiring authors. So let's just get that going. And then I also wanted to share, because a lot of people have been asking me, why am I spending so much time wanting to doing this? And it's just my ultimate passion. And especially right now, my ultimate passion, because I struggled so much in my early days. And I know Roxanne commented yesterday, I might have her throw that comment back up, that everyone that takes this workshop is going to be I think she said they'll be 1,000,000 miles ahead of where I was at when I first started, because I'm going to share with you so much of my personal journey and the things that did work, the things that didn't work. Mm-hmm. And I really want to do that through the Aspiring Authors Facebook group, because gosh, I didn't know any of this stuff when I got started. And, a friend of mine told me once, he's like, Mary, he goes, you are the person that when you see the door of opportunity knocking, he said, you don't just open it. He said, you kick the door open and then you hold it open, and you want as many people to run through that door of opportunity as possible. And that is so true, because you know what? I know what it feels like on the inside when you want to write a book. And so that's why I'm asking, if you guys want to write a book, tell me right now in the comments, I want to write a book. Because we have to own that. Part of this process is just getting started, admitting to yourself, now is the time. And I spent 10 years of my life, really just talking about wanting to write a book and not believing in myself enough to actually be able to get started.
Yeah.
And Gary Vee is always saying, that just the trick is just get started.
Yeah.
So, all right. That was my personal share for this morning.
Thank you for sharing. And I think on a personal note too, for me, and I'm sure it's the same for you, Mary, there've been books that have been so pivotal in my journey, in understanding who I am, in healing past stuff. And you have that moment when you read a book and you see something for the first time, you see it in a brand new way, and to have the opportunity as an author to be that for someone else, that's amazing. And I'm sure you feel the same, to be able to teach people how to do that and ultimately try to be a part of other people's journey of waking up and being the best version of themselves is a really, really amazing thing.
Yeah, I'll tell you something that happened this week. We found a blog that was...
Oh, I just lost you for a second there. You've just broken up. Mary, can you hear me? I've just lost you. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I just lost you. The last thing I heard you say was we found a blog. And then
we found a blog, and it was so funny because it was written in German, and we had to use Google Translate, but it was written in German and it was about my book. So you never know what lives you're going to touch out there. And that's the second blog that a woman has written about the impact that actually chapter 2 had on them, and the exercise, particularly in chapter 2. Another thing I want to say, I think sometimes the insecurities about writing a book is just that people think that what they're teaching is the same as what every other life coach is teaching or what every other author has ever written about. And I always felt that way too, but nobody can ever tell the story in the same way that you can. And I know Serafina said hi and she hasn't gotten her invite yet for aspiring authors. We will be sending the invite out today, but only people that have actually signed up for the workshop. So if you haven't signed up for the workshop and paid the $79, that's the only people who are going to get. So that's not an invite for everyone. It's just people exclusive for this particular aspiring authors workshop. So we'd love to have you in the group as soon as we can confirm that you have in fact signed up for the workshop.
Brilliant. And Mary, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but it's a burning question that I have, and I'd also love to hear what everyone watching thinks of this, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. I was wondering, what is the book that really stands out as part of your personal development journey? Do you have any favorite personal development books? Like,
I have a million. So,
yeah.
I would say that that's wonderful, Serafina. So we'll get that sorted out. So don't worry about it. Like, let's focus on what we're talking about here. So, okay, like James Altucher is one of, wonderful. Big hug, Serafina. James Altucher is one of my very favorite authors in the whole world. Just his writing style is very much like he just vomits on the page. And he doesn't worry about making it beautiful. He doesn't worry about making it perfect, but he is very skilled at getting his point across. And teaching through his mistakes, through his successes. And so his book that I really like a lot is called Choose Yourself. And that book had a big impact on me, as well as Kamal Ravikant's book, which is called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depended on It.
Oh, wow. What a title.
Yes. And it's just a very short read. Now I could go on and on and on about Simon Sinek, but you asked me for one book and that's the one that came to my mind.
Beautiful. For me, I think, one of the books that was at the start of my journey that really made me see things in a different way was The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It's become a bit of a modern classic in personal development circles. He talks about the upper limit problem and how when we hit that upper limit of that amount of happiness, love, success that we feel we deserve, we'll sabotage to keep ourselves below that safe limit. And I think it's so profound. And there were so many other nuggets. I had that realization when I read it, and I kept reading, and there was just more and more and more and more. It's like being hit upside the head in the most loving way possible, like every time I turned the page, and it was just so wonderful. And the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, I think, is a classic as well.
That's a really fun one.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I think someone asked a question yesterday about, like, what if their book isn't in the wellness category? Do you remember that question coming up?
Yeah.
I wanted to speak to that and just say my book is not a wellness book. So especially like if you're considering the workshop, it's not specific to any genre other than just nonfiction.
Yeah.
So and a teaching memoir. So my book is definitely considered in the teaching memoir category, but I am not a wellness entrepreneur. I am a CEO that runs a business in a financial industry. And so I thought it was a wonderful question because I didn't want anyone to think that, there's nonfiction is only in the wellness industry. I mean, because there's so many things that you can write about. Like, you can tell your story of how you opened your business. You can share your story of, raising your special needs child, or, somebody said something really brilliantly at this New Year's Eve meditation retreat that I was at, when she was talking about the stress of caring for her elderly parent. And that's really something that could turn into a beautiful book, because a lot of people, when people can relate and resonate with your story, that really draws them in. And then what you do with that is you teach the lesson. You teach the lesson through your own journey, through your own expertise, through the things that maybe you studied in school, or perhaps what your business is centered around. So I remembered that question, and I wanted to address it because I thought it was such an amazing, amazing question. So thank you, Serafina.
That's Cheryl, great point, Mary. Yeah, thank you. And that reminds me of one of the questions I always start with my clients, which is, it might sound like a really obvious question, but it is, are you here for business or pleasure? Meaning, when you're writing your book, are you writing it to become a leader in that field? Is it related to generating revenue for you? Is it linked to your business? Or is it pleasure? Is it a passion project? Is it just a bucket list item? And I say just a bucket list item, of course it's important, but the fact is, if you're writing it for for fun, and you really don't mind how many people you reach and you just want to do it, then you actually are empowered to go the route of self-publishing, to do it in any way you choose. But if you're here for business and it's very strategic and measured, then it becomes a case of, let's learn about the conventions of that genre. Let's learn about the marketing side. So if you're doing it just for fun and you really don't mind how many people you reach, it is just do whatever you want pretty much. But when it's like myself and Mary are talking about, let's do this strategically, let's learn about the publishing industry to reach as many people as possible, then that becomes a slightly different animal. So you're mentioning teaching memoir. I do see a lot of people want to write their first book and it becomes all about them. It becomes a pure memoir. So, but unless you have a really, really dramatic story, or if you can tell it really, really well, or you're a public figure, unless you have those things, you need to realize that's probably going to be a self-published memoir, and it might really limit the amount of people you're trying to reach. So as Mary was saying, when you're telling your story, make sure you're telling those lessons as well if you really want to reach as many people as possible.
I think that's a really great way to sum it up. And then were there some other questions was there another question on our list for today?
We had a question on proposals, which I think we've sort of covered, because you won a proposal contest with HayHouse, didn't you? And I know you've talked quite widely about your experience there. So I think we've covered all the questions we were going to cover from yesterday. If anyone's watching live or on the replay, do let us know what your questions are. We'll be checking the comments for the next 24 hours or so. So do pop your questions down below. And like Mary said, let us know if you are writing a book, you are an aspiring author. We'd love to hear from you and hear all about your book.
So in the meantime, while we're sort of waiting for that, let me tell you some of the things that we are including with this Aspiring Authors Writers online workshop. Yeah. So I have created a competitive titles guide. One of the sections that I think can be a tricky part of the proposal is writing the section that's a comparative analysis. And what this means is that you need to pick a handful of books, like 4 to maybe 6. I don't remember the exact number I have in my notes for the workshop, but you want to pick books that are similar titles to your own, and you want to highlight in the proposal how your book is the same, like what makes your book similar to this book, and also how do you separate yourself from this book? And so there's really an art to writing that, because you don't certainly want to trash the other book. You don't want to, you want to write it in a way that's very affirming of that book, but then also saying people will enjoy this other perspective on that. So so I actually am providing for you guys a step-by-step process of how to complete your competitive titles guide that is already in a document, so you'll be able to keep that, so that when you are writing that part of your proposal, you'll be able to go through it section by section by section. And I just think that that's a wonderful cheat sheet that if I would have had that. In fact, I'm writing my second proposal right now, and that was one of the, that still remains to be one of the tricky parts, is like, how do you choose these books? And you want to choose books, like my pro tips for that is you really want to choose books that, don't choose a book that was 10 years old. You want to choose something that's come out in the last year, made its debut in the last year, and you want to pick something that has a status. So if you really love this book, that is in your genre, and you really resonate well with that book, it might make it a great book to pick. But if no one has heard of that title, then the publisher, that's not really going to grab their attention. Like, for example, and another thing is you want to pick a book that has a lot of reviews. So you want to pick a book that has more than 100 reviews. So you're there because that is really just an important differentiator, that you've picked books that are well known. You pick books that are so, well known, meaning the publisher is going to recognize the title right away, that it has lots of reviews, and that you can highlight how the book is similar and also different to your own book. So you're going to get a guide of how to walk through and write that. Okay. And then you're also going to get a chapter planner. So the chapter planner is one of the things that I'm also really excited about, because the chapter planner is one of the things that I get constantly complimented about on my book. And if you go on Amazon and you read the reviews for Conscious Communications, the book hasn't been out that long, but we've already got 53 reviews. And over again, I see people saying, like, I feel like I am I feel like I am sitting having coffee with Mary as I'm writing this book. Like they really feel like they're getting to know the author. And I used a very specific technique that I am giving you in this chapter planner, which is all about tell a story, make a point. And I'm going to show you how to organize the chapter in a way that you can take your story and break it out into like 3 sub bullets, which is really important for getting your sample chapter done. You know, when I got the phone call from HayHouse Publishing that they had in fact chosen my proposal as the one that they wanted to publish, the first thing she said to me was, "I loved your sample chapter." And you want to write a sample chapter is extremely important because it's your opportunity to show your publisher that you're looking for your writing style, you know, and your ability to tell a story and make a point.
Excellent. As you were talking there about the competitive analysis, I was actually thinking about the book that I'm going to be writing a proposal for. So I think this would be a really good example if you don't mind me sort of giving a little bit of information about this, and perhaps you could let me know what you think. So as you know, Mary, my next book is going to be about twin flames, which is ultimately about relationships, but spiritual relationships that are a catalyst for healing. Now, what's really interesting about that is a lot of the current titles out, whether they've been published years and years ago or within the previous 12 months, a lot of those twin flame titles are self-published and really have a lot less than 100 reviews on Amazon, and ultimately look like they have quite a small reach and small audience. So what would be your recommendation in a situation like that? Would I then be looking at similar titles and then titles that perhaps have a similar audience? So I'd be aiming my book at, you know, a modern woman, a modern single woman. Would I then be looking at perhaps dating books that are not spiritual? How would you recommend I go about that?
I was just thinking, guys, if you see my eyes darting around on camera, I tend to like look around or look up when I'm thinking really hard. So don't think I'm rolling my eyes at Cheryl or her question. I'm just really thinking hard. So the first thing that came up in my mind was Ariel Ford. Like there are Barbara DeAngelis, John Gray, there are people who touch upon and write on that subject. And so, you know, there's going to be some tips, like you can do some Google searches, but really get into like a niche. I think there's a book called Calling in the One. And that book did very, very well. So that's just like off the top of my head. But here's what you do. When you look at that book, there'll be another section that says other, you know, like other people that bought this book also bought that book. And that can lead you down a really interesting trail of finding other books within that genre. So it is a part of the proposal that's going to take some research. You know, I'm not here to pretend that proposal writing is easy, okay? Because it really does, you know, it took me a while, and I'm also writing a proposal. So, I mean, I think it would just be a great idea if you're watching right now. I know Sandra posted a comment that we can get to about being maybe a wedding planner. And like the proposal that I'm writing right now, my working title is called The Communication Code. And so it's different than my first book, because this is a book that's going to be about business communication. And it still is a teaching memoir though. And so like right in the midst of teaching you guys this proposal process, I'm actually writing my own proposal. And, you know, like the competitive analysis section, like I said, it's tricky. And another one of the things that you're going to get, aside from this chapter planner, that you're going to get from me is a copy of my actual proposal. You know, that is, I just can't even tell you how much of a gift that is, because when you have an actual award-winning proposal sitting next to yours, it gives you something to compare yours to. It gives you a standard. You know, and I'm going to be giving you also like specific tips about writing your proposal that is going to help you with the writing style. So I think that the tendency of a lot of people when they're writing a proposal is say, like, you want to write things in the present tense and not say what you will do. So it's much more important to saying what you are doing versus what you will be doing. And, you know, my next sort of like thought that's coming to me that I wanted to share is about building a platform. And also I wanted to talk a moment about what you and I are doing right this very moment, which is being on video.
Excellent. Let's chat about that in just a second. And I think, okay, Mary, what's so great about the proposal that you're including with the workshop is that when you wrote it, you didn't have a platform. And I know I've mentioned this several times, but I think it's so important because people look at you and say, oh, but you have a combined audience of 30,000. But you didn't when you wrote the proposal.
Zero.
Well,
when I started writing the proposal, I had zero.
Yeah.
And when I started working on it, I grew. The platform started to grow very quickly in the beginning. And then there was times where it sort of waxed and waned. So there was times where it stalled. And then there was times when it would begin to grow again. And, it's like I learned things. I learned what to do. I learned what not to do. I learned what works. I learned I learned what I should have been doing a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that I was waiting for the book to come out before I started doing, I would be a lot further ahead of where I'm at now if I would have started a long time ago. So I just think that that's an important important point to make is stop waiting for everything to be perfect.
That's such a great point, Mary. And I was working on my slides today, and one of the points that I make in the platform building section is there's actually a flow chart of when to start promoting your book, and I recommend doing it 6 months before you publish. And in the slides, it does say, yes, really, 6 months before, because what you do is you ramp up towards the publication date. So 6 weeks before, that's when you start to get into a really intense traditional book publicity campaign. But the 6 months before, you're sharing your milestones. You're sharing that you've got to your first 10,000 words. You're sharing that you wrote your proposal. You're definitely sharing when you got a book deal, if you're able to do that for confidentiality reasons. So obviously do check your contract on that. But you're sharing all those milestones as you go along, as you're able to, and getting people really excited and giving people behind the scenes. I mean, look at people that write books now. Look at people like Gabby Bernstein. She does a great job of this. She always shows sneak peeks where she can and behind the scenes. It makes you feel so included and so involved. So model that and start talking about your book now. If you're just starting to write it and talk about it on social media now. And what that does, as well as get people interested and invested in your book, is it makes you accountable. Because then people are going to say, weren't you writing a book? And what happened to that? So once you say it, it really puts your stake in the ground. A little different if you're talking to your family at like a barbecue or a Sunday dinner or something. But if you're actually saying it publicly on social media, it does make you accountable to actually writing the book.
I agree. I completely agree.
And you wanted to go into platform building and talk about what we're doing now on video. Where do you want to go with that?
I think that it's never too early to start. And this is specifically if you're wanting to if traditional publishing is what's on your heart. And I think that, a great topic of discussion is like, how do you choose? And I can tell you that I had made the decision that whether I was getting a book deal or not, it did not matter. My book was coming into the world no matter what. So even though I got a book contract, and that's amazing, like I am telling you that I was very prepared to self-publish my book. I was not going to wait around to shop for a publisher because I wanted to get started. And, it's like the ability to take criticism. So last night, I had this interesting situation and it's really difficult, and I'll go ahead and share it. But last night, I sent a video to a friend of mine that was an episode of a podcast that I was recently on called Untamed the Wild Soul. Now, this is one of my favorite podcasts with Elizabeth DiAlto. I just love her. And I've watched episodes of her show that have literally been life-changing. Well, when I sent this video, and she has it both like on YouTube, and then you can obviously just listen to the audio only. Well, here's what happened. I had this like expectation. I sent him this video and I thought he was going to be like, oh, Mary, that's great. You did so wonderful. And he didn't. He like roasted me. He told me, he said things like, your lipstick is all wrong. You need to invest in better lighting. He was like very critiquing. And in the end, he actually thought I was sending it to him because I wanted him to critique it. And it brought me to tears. So I actually went to bed crying last night because and the reason I'm telling this story is because I want you to know that there are some defeating moments. Okay. Yeah. When you're going through this journey, there are defeating moments. There's moments when you look at yourself and you're like, I don't want to see myself on camera. Yeah. I don't like this. Okay. And I don't, it's just a very real thing. And so, yeah. He was also, even sort of poking fun at some of my content. And I realized like quite after the fact, I shouldn't have sent him that video. It was really for, the audience is for women. And thank goodness I actually had somebody post in her comments on her Facebook page that it was their very favorite episode that they'd ever seen. And someone on YouTube posted a similar comment. And then I've also gotten an email from a woman asking me for a resource that I shared on the podcast. But I just want to say, like, when people say these things, it hurts. And then you've got all of this information flying at you when you're trying to build a proposal and you're starting to research, you've got like Gary Vee out there saying, document everything. Stop worrying about lighting. Stop worrying about what you look like. Stop trying to be perfect and just be real, right? Yeah. Stop trying to create this production and just get started. Yeah. And so I had to remember and forgive this friend of mine because he doesn't know any of that. He's a banker. He doesn't live in the world of social media. And when you get these sort of these setbacks, okay, when you get this setback, when you get the person who criticizes you, you still have to get up the next day and get right back in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And so that's just something that happened for me. And that's just something that happened to me yesterday, and it was still on my heart. And I want to share it with you guys because it's going to most likely happen to you too, and you just, it's like, but I think Gary Vee is right. I think that what feels most right to me is not to stop, is not to wait until you're perfect. It's to, let me tell you guys something. Where I'm at now is loads, it's million miles above where I started. Okay. And where I'm going to be in a year from now it's going to be unrecognizable to where I'm at now. And why do I know that to be true? Because I have gotten 5 invites to be on online summits already this year. I have gotten my own series on HayHouse Live, which is huge. Okay. That is a huge opportunity. I've been on over 120 podcasts and it's still growing. Next week, I'm going on EO Fire, which is a huge, and I'm not saying all of this to toot my own horn. I'm saying this to say that if you do the right things, if you're consistent, if you're providing quality, quantity, and variety, this will just organically grow. Okay. I'm all about the hustle and I love the hustle. I love the creation part of it. Okay. And I'm so willing to just be open to my journey. Yeah. So just you ask me and I will tell you the truth. But I went to bed in tears because of the way this person critiqued me. And then I had to have that talk with myself and say, you know what? The lighting doesn't matter. The lipstick doesn't matter. I look like what I look like. So Mary, I don't have a lot of control over that.
Mary, thank you so much for sharing that, because that's so honest and so real and so recent. And I really am grateful that you shared that with everyone, and I'm so sorry as well for the words that you received from that person. And, I think for everyone watching, it's so easy to look at maybe Mary or myself. And I get this all the time. I get people say things like, oh, you're so confident on camera. And I think some days I don't feel it at all. Yesterday, I'll be really honest with you too, Mary sort of opened up the platform to do this now. I was on camera yesterday on our part 2, and I was looking in the mirror before, and I'm thinking, gosh, I'm having a bad skin day. The skin around my eyes is kind of dry, and I've got glasses on, so nobody will know. And so I'm just going to be really honest, self-image wise. You have those days where you might have a zit on your chin or something, and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to slap the makeup on and get in front of the camera. That's just real life. And, both Mary and myself are not shiny Instagram influencers. We're real human beings, and we always want to show you what the real process looks like. So get on camera and don't wait till it's perfect. I got lighting about 2 weeks ago and I've been doing this 3.5 years, right? So you don't have to have all the kits. Start where you are with what you have, and
you definitely,
again, use your phone. Just use your phone. That's
yeah. And you know, they have like really little, there are little inexpensive things that you can do to help. Like I've seen those little clip-on lenses for the phones.
Yeah.
I actually sent one to someone in the HayHouse Write Speak Promote group, because she was doing her Facebook Live and she was doing it where it was this way, and you know, and it looks better in the widescreen.
Yeah.
And I think that the tendency is, you know, you want to hold your phone this way, but there are tips and tricks, and like you can go on YouTube and very easily, like you can find tips that can help you, but don't worry about the way you look, you know, just be you and present yourself, because the content is what's important. Your story, your journey, that is what is most important. That's what's going to build a relationship with people. And that's what has people feel the most connected to you. And I will tell you that even in my writing journey, when I would go to writers workshops, which is why I'm also so thrilled to be hosting my own writers workshop, you know, Nancy Levin would say, the thing that you don't want to share, the thing that you're the most terrified to let people know, that's the thing you should be sharing.
100%.
It was not easy for me to share. I'm like tearing up a little bit, but it was not easy for me to share what happened last night, because like every logical thought in my body was like, don't get on that camera again.
Yeah.
Like it just immediately went to this place of you're not good enough. But then I have to remind myself, you know what, Mary, you are good enough. You're good enough for where you're at right now. And that's all you need to be.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you again. It's just so
that teary moment.
So real. No, you're making me tear up a little bit because I care so much about you. I want to give you a hug. And put the kettle on, because that's what we do in Britain. If there's a situation like, just put the kettle on, I'll make you a cup of tea, everything's going to be fine.
Oh, that's so sweet.
That's the British way. But I was on a podcast recently and the episode came out this week, I think it was.
I listened to it. It was great.
Thank you very much. And I was really self-conscious after that, because I felt like the podcaster, a friend of mine, Ryan Campbell, he writes under R. Campbell. He's just got his first book deal for fiction, which is really exciting for his debut. So well done, Ryan. But after I talked to him, I felt like it didn't connect with him. And I think it's because it was so different to what he was expecting. Because I talked about mindset instead of tactics when building a platform. But he's wrote to me since, and I'm sure he doesn't mind me saying this, and he's like, that was brilliant. Like, that's changed me so much. And the way he's showing up on Twitter now, which is where we first encountered one another and built a friendship, he's showing up so much differently, and he's being himself. And I'm like, I did it. I got him. And Sandra, who's on live now, also said she had a really big revelation listening to it. And yet I was so self-conscious when I was saying it. But basically what I was saying was, sometimes we think it's not safe to be seen. And that loops in really well to what you were saying, Mary, about your friend's critique of your interview. That makes us go, it's not safe to be seen. And that reminds me of that time when I was 15 and I was bullied and I was 6 and my dad said this thing, and we go back down that, and this is Mary, area of expertise, but back down that neural pathway, and we strengthen that. And that's when we can say, no, it's safe for me to be seen, and I'm going to show up and get on camera today.
Yes. And you know what? And it doesn't matter, even if it's not perfect. I mean, like, believe me, guys, the video will go away. There's so many videos. If you don't like the video, guess what? You can delete it. And it does. It takes like just doing those first couple ones I thought would be really funny. And I might actually post this in the Aspiring Authors writers group on Facebook. If I post this video, I wonder, just tell me if you want me to do this. If I post this video, I have this like little 1.5 minute clip of me and my assistant, Summer, at the time, trying to practice shooting a video. And I kid you not, I'm like dropping the phone. I'm like picking my nose. I'm looking all around the room. I have no idea what's going on. And it's so funny because when I watch that video now, I just laugh at myself. And so because I think that the thought process, Roxanne's like, don't share the video. Yeah, no. She's seen it. She knows the video I'm talking about. Because I said yesterday, I think I want to share this video. She's like, it's so bad, you guys. It's so terrible. Or if I have these videos, I shot a video a couple years ago for my staff, and I was like, called it 1 minute motivation. And then it went on for like 15 minutes. And again, it's like, it's so funny, like the words. But anyway, why am I sharing this with you? I'm sharing this with you because I want you to know it's scary. It's scary to shoot shoot your first videos, but it's scary to like put your life out there. And, but it's okay. Like, I assure you, it will be okay, because a lot of times people really see your vulnerability and they see your beauty through like seeing that you're not just a machine that's doing everything right all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. I hope that wasn't too much of a downer.
No, I think it was brilliant. And I think it's really important. I think this is just as important as the tactics, because people sometimes can look at people like you and me, or people with a bigger platform, and say, oh, but they're different than me. We've all got the same hang-ups. You know, I was just, as you were talking, I was just looking on YouTube here, and one of my first videos I've actually put as unlisted because I don't want anyone to see it anymore. I might actually... Yeah, I might actually post it in the comments in a little bit here, and it's called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I'm so awkward, and it's 3 years ago, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to share this, but I'm going to, because I think it's important that people see.
Well, you can share it in the aspiring authors group, and then that way it'll be limited to who can see it. But you know, and I love, like, Preston Smiles talks about this. He talks about the awkward stage, and the awkward stage is like representative of where you're at now compared to where you want to be, and like all of the things and the twists and turns and all of the, you know, all of the places that you need to be, all the setbacks, the heartbreaks, the wins, you know, you're going to have like the most amazing thing happen to you. And you're like, wow, I just got huffed. I just got on Carrie Green's podcast, or, you know, I got this big win. And then like 3 days later, you have something happen that just rips your heart out. And like, that is part of the author's journey. It just is. And so I love just to be open and honest about that. It wasn't always easy, but it did happen. And so, all right, well, I kind of took us in a weird direction, but if we want to get back to questions, I'm like happy to answer any questions. And also I want to know, like, what are you writing your book about? So we've heard from Cheryl. She is writing a book about twin flames, which I have had that conversation with her, and it's really, really a cool topic and a cool conversation, and the things you learn about yourself through these people that come into your life. And the book I'm writing, I've actually got two. So the proposal that I'm finishing up right now is called The Communication Code, and it is going to be a business communication strategy. So very different from the first book, but it's actually sort of like if you take the concepts from the first book, which are all about personal development, and you put those into professional development, you very easily see the connection between the two books. But one is personal and one is professional. And then I have another book that's in my mind, and this is sort of like a good time to talk about, like, what do you do when you just sort of have the idea for the book in your mind? And that's this book called Unraveled, which is really all about my healing journey, and like through years and years, I'm writing about fairies. Oh my gosh, you know, Karen, fairies have become so popular. I have a friend who's a fairyologist. So I'll give her a shout out. Her name is, she calls herself the Pink Chick, and she lives in a nudist colony in Florida, and she's just so awesome. If I'm going to let her know I like mentioned her name in this in this show today. So, all right, I love it. The book about fairies, fairyologist.
And Karen actually had a question. Oh, no, sorry, it was Sandra that had a question. Should we jump into it?
Yes.
So Sandra asks, I have a bit of an inner conflict. My business is weddings, and most of what is out there and what predominantly brides want is delicate and romantic information. I'm not delicate and romantic. Well, that's for another webinar. Haha. Anyhow, my conflict is the energy with which I write. Do I write it in the way that is proven to be well received, or take a risk and be me in my writing?
That's such a great question, Sandra. And I can understand like the conflict, because as a business owner, you're probably really type A, and you can let me know if I'm getting this wrong. But I'm pretty good at tuning in and doing like the laser coaching. So, and especially in the wedding business, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like you have to be the type of person that can handle a lot of drama. Yeah, for sure. Right. Because you're handling brides, you're handling bridesmaids, you're handling mothers of brides, you're handling, you know, mother-in-law of the bride, you're handling everything. You're handling tears, you're handling triumphs, you're handling breakups, you're handling like somebody got pregnant. This happened to me. Like I was a bridesmaid and I got pregnant, and the wedding, like the person, oh my gosh, it was so much drama. Okay, so this was me too, right? And I used to worry about this because I worried that I came across too direct and that the reader was not going to be able to relate with me. This is when we're going to talk about the power of editors. Okay. You write your story the way that it is. And then, you really have to invest in your book. You cannot, I looked at a book the other day, a friend, and actually it was a soulmates book, Cheryl. When I was on that meditation retreat, there was a guy there. He's published a couple books. He gave me a copy of his book and he wanted me to look at it. Well, right away, just from reading the back cover of the book, it was obvious to me that it did not have enough rounds of editing.
Yeah.
Okay. So my point here is you have editors that they know the language. And so what they will do is they will do a clean sweep through your book and they will soften it in the places that need to be softened. They will strengthen it in the places that need to be strengthened. But thank God, because I used to worry about that. Oh my gosh, these people are going to hate me. And really that was the least thing I needed to be worried about. You write in your own voice. If anything is too much, if anything is too raw. So this was, thank you, Sandra. I went to a writer's workshop in New York over the summer, and it was taught by Nancy Aroney. And Nancy Aroney, I swear to God, she's 83 years old. She is a fabulous writer. She's been on NPR forever, 50 freaking years. And she's just this incredible person. And she wrote a book on writing, and she teaches writing workshops at Martha's Vineyard. And I will tell you that the things that you write sometimes in a writer's class, or if you go off to a writer's retreat, they tend to be much more raw. And I asked her, who's this expert, this exact question that Sandra is asking. And what she told me was, the answer is that's what editors are for. You trust the intuition of the editors because they know. Okay. You write it. And then if it needs to be toned down, because I told this story in this writing class that was very raw about this night with my ex-husband. And I told this story and I was like James Altucher. I vomited on the page. And when I read the story out loud to the audience, they were all in tears, and it was a beautiful thing. Right. But on your writing, people can't see your body language. They can't see the context of the story through your facial expression, through your posturing of your body. So good editors that's what they are for. And you don't need to worry about that, Sandra. But that's an excellent question.
Yeah, and that's a great answer too. And as we're talking about editing, we actually have a question come in from Mitch Austin, which is, how can I find an editor that will want to work with a first-time author that won't break the bank? So Mitch, I'm assuming if you're looking for an editor, you're going down the self-publishing route, and therefore you're not going to have access to an editor for a big box publisher of nonfiction or whatever the case may be. So when I found my first editor, so my first book was actually fiction, and I hired an editor that I knew from a Facebook group, Facebook community, and she's an editor that had trained under the same editor who edited the first 5 Harry Potter books. So in terms of in terms of the good juju and as well as the experience, she was the best fit for that, and she was brilliant. And it was an investment. I paid her about $2,000 or $3,000 to edit the entire manuscript, but what I learned, I was able to take through, and I will use for the rest of my writing career. Did I make that money back on the first book? No, I did not. But it's that investment in myself, not just in the book, but in myself and in the process. So I feel like now I can write any fiction, have a really good handle on dialogue and structure and character development. Or with nonfiction, I still have a good idea of how the developmental editing process works, and then all the different rounds of edits, like line editing and QC editing, which are basically, as you go through the rounds of edits, you get finer and finer detail. And Mary was talking about how your book is kind of softened as you go through by an editor, and then gradually you'll get passed to a different editor. So even within editing, there are certain types of editors. So you'll go through that process, and that's what I learned. So Mitch, in terms of finding an editor, look at a book that you've really enjoyed and look at who the editor is and contact them. Even if they can't edit your book, they might have an associate that they work with who might be a bit more affordable, but everyone's going to range in prices. Editors are not cheap. It is an investment, but it's one of those things where you can do it cheap or you can do it right with your first book, particularly if it's self-published. And like I said, the investment I made in my first book, my first novel, may not have been the best business decision at the time, but that being said, the investment is something that I'm going to, use for the rest of my career as a writer.
It goes right back to mindset, doesn't it, Cheryl?
It does.
Like you don't look at it as a loss. You looked at that as an investment. And what I would say to Mitch is that I'm going to be for those of us who participate in and sign up for the Aspiring Authors online workshop. I'm going to be sharing my resource, the company that I went through for my proposal writing process and for editing, because even though I had a book deal, I actually also hired an editor to do one round of editing before I turned my first draft in, mostly because I didn't want to embarrass myself with HayHouse. And so even though like I did traditional and you did self, actually many authors do that. It's not uncommon at all for authors to hire their own editor and work with their own editor, even during the developmental process of writing the book. And I certainly did that, and I recommend that. And I'll be sharing who I worked with and make sure that everyone has that resource available to them. And what's really cool about that is that most of these companies that do this, they have different packages. So you can get in at the level that you can afford. So, I mean, you can have someone, you can what's the word? Economically, you can find the match. Now, if you can also find freelancers. So, you know, there are lots of websites. There are people that, you know, are just willing to work for freelance work. Maybe it's their side hustle, but especially with the way that publishing has been transforming the last like 7 years, there are a lot of editors that do more freelance work. And from what I understand, you can actually get an editor who also works at Random House, but they have a side hustle. So I think that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked it. And I hope that gives you great information. So, and Mitch, I'm wondering, are you interested in self-publishing or traditional publishing? You can let us know.
And what genre are you writing as well? Because one of the most important things when you find an editor, in addition to all the points that we've talked about, is are they familiar with your genre? Because if I was writing dark romance and if my editor was a fiction editor, but she only knew crime thrillers, that's very different. That's actually a very different genre. And so readers have certain expectations of a genre. And of course, it's an art form when you're writing fiction. And by the way, the workshop that Mary and I are doing does not focus on fiction. It's non-fiction, but just using fiction as an example. Even within fiction genres, you have the subgenres. So make sure the editor you're working with understands the convention of that genre.
Yeah, and I just saw your instinct was correct, because I just saw that Mitch commented that he is looking at self-publishing. So, you know, even though I'm traditional published, let me tell you a few of the benefits I think of self-publishing. So one of the things is when you self-publish, you own the rights, and you don't have that constant pressure of building a platform. And one of the things that I find really interesting is that many people ask me to record my book for Audible. And even though it's very cheap, I think you can record for Audible for like $1,500. I have a friend that just did an Audible book and she published through Balboa. I saw somebody mentioned Balboa a moment ago, that they're going through Balboa. And she's recording her book on Audible right now, and it's costing her like $1,400 or $1,500. Well, she can do that because she actually owns the rights. Whereas like my book, even though it's a HayHouse book, and HayHouse is like this, you know, really big publishing company in my genre, I don't get to be the person who makes the decision about recording on audio. And so it's like, it's sort of become this thing, because I would love to record the book on audio because I love audiobooks. And, but I'm not the person who makes that call. So just to let you know, there are definite benefits of self-publishing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Patricia Clark says self-publishing companies, Balboa Press is my choice. I absolutely love them. I actually have a call with a representative of Balboa next week to talk a little bit about their self-publishing packages and what they can offer me and my tribe. So if you're interested, let me know and I can relay any questions to them and let you know what they say.
Yeah, and wait for sales too, because a friend of mine just bought a package from Balboa and it was through their end of the year sale and she got a really great deal. So yeah, like just know that they have sales, they have promotions. You can always ask them for a discount. So I would definitely haggle that through.
Absolutely. And I think, Mary, we've gone through a lot of the questions we had while we've been on live. So do you have any parting words of wisdom?
just, like I cannot wait for this workshop. I have so much to give to you guys. So if you haven't already signed up for the Aspiring Authors online workshop, please check the link and see if that is a good fit for you. So for only $79, you're going to get a ton of value. And I am so excited about getting the Get Huffed course, and just want to like sign off by saying like massive love from over here in Champaign, Illinois.
Yeah, absolutely. And same for me in the Lake District here in the north of England. I do hope you'll accept our invite and join the Aspiring Author Workshop. Tickets are $79 and we start on Sunday. There's so many juicy bonuses. There's so much more than we have the scope and the capacity to get through, even in the 3 videos that we've done. And hey, if you haven't watched part 2 and part 1, they'll be up on my Facebook page and Mary's Facebook page, depending on where you are viewing from. So check them out, and I hope you really have found this valuable. And I do hope you'll accept our invitation to join the workshop on Sunday, and the details are in the comments.
Yeah, and I just want to thank you all for watching, and thank you for the comments. It as you can see, it can be a tough thing to get on video, so it's just really encouraging to see you guys hanging in there and pursuing your dreams.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you everyone so much for watching, and we'll speak to you all very, very soon. Bye for now.